talk to you about dumpster diving. So Ashton and I were at Andre Van Zil's conference the end of October. We flew in on a Wednesday and rented a vehicle, drove to the hotel about 35, 40 minutes away. We went to the conference that evening. We came back, got up the next morning, went to the morning sessions, went to lunch, and they wanted Ashton to do some videotaping, and so I went back in the afternoon. I dropped Ashton off, and rather than just hang out at the church for a couple of hours, I said, well, let me go back to the hotel, and then I'll come back and pick him up, and we'll go to dinner. And so I drove back to the hotel, parked the car. I had some trash I needed to throw out, threw out the trash, went up to the hotel room. And it was the afternoon. You know how it gets sometimes around 4-ish in the afternoon. If you sit down, you might fade away. And so I started fading away a little bit. And so it was about 5 o'clock or so, and I said, oh, they're going to start serving dinner, so I need to go. And I couldn't find the car key. And I said, oh, I must have left it in the car. So I go down, and I happen to have left the car unlocked. I don't know why I did that, but I did. And I went down and began to look in the car, and I searched through the car underneath everything, the seats, the dash, and I can't find the key. It's a little key fob. There used to be a day when you could just go make another key, but those days are over. It's this little key fob. I can't find it. And so then I go back up to the room, and I keep searching for the key in the room. I'm turning things over. I'm searching for the key. And I called Ashton, and I said, Ashton, do you have the key? Now, the reason I thought that he could have the key was because I didn't turn the car off when I dropped him off. And you know, if you have a key fob, sometimes the car will keep running until you shut it off, and then you can't run. So I thought maybe he had the key at the church, which is about 15 minutes away. He said, Dad, I don't have the key. I said, are you sure you don't have the key? Go and look in the video room where you were taping there and see if you've got the key. And he said, Dad, I don't have the key. So I go back out to the car, I look again, I go up to the room, and I can't find the key. So now I've got to get to church. I've got to find a way to church. And so somebody was there that was going to the conference. I said, can you give me a ride over to the church tonight? And I said, yeah, sure. So I go over, and then I go back to the video room myself. And I look in there, and I look at another room, and where we were at, and I said, I can't find this key. And so now it's the worship service, and I'm praying during the worship service, great worship service, but my mind is distracted because I've got to find this key because this key is valuable. At that moment, that key is the most important thing in my life. I've got to find this key. And so during the worship service, I slipped out. I said, hey, can you unlock the door for me over here? I got to check and see if we left something in there. I'd already been in the room looking around. But you know how it is. If you misplace something and you keep looking, eventually you find it. You know what I'm saying? So, but it wasn't there. I'm still praying, and I'm saying, God, you got to help me find this key. Service is over with. We have to get a ride back to the hotel because we don't have a car. So I get back and said, Ashton, help me. And he had a friend there with him. I said, guys, help me find this key. We go up to the room. It's not there. We go outside. I'd walked all around the hotel because I took a different exit out and went down the stairs. I said, well, maybe I dropped it while I was going down the stairs. And out behind the hotel. I can't find the key. Ashton says to me, Dad, you're going to have to call Enterprise. I said, I can't call Enterprise. So I called Enterprise. And I said, ma'am, I think I've misplaced the key fob. She said, oh, really? Well, you're going to have the car towed. I'm like, now I'm starting to see dollar signs. I'm 40 minutes from the airport where I rented it at. And she says, you're going to have the car towed. And then I thought, well, you got to replace the key fob, too. The key fob's about $250 plus the tow. The problem is, the next morning, I have to leave the hotel at 4 a.m. in the morning to go catch a flight to New York City. And then Ashton's not going to have a car. So I'm trying to go through this whole scenario in my mind. I said, well, thank you, ma'am. I'm going to keep looking for this. I hung up because it's 10 o'clock at night. Of course, everything is closed. And I'm retracing my steps over and over again. Have you ever done this before? Retrace your steps. I'm retracing my steps, and I remember that I threw out some trash. So, I wouldn't throw the key out, but I just said, well, I'm still going to retrace my steps. I go over to the little trash can, which was over by the banquet rooms on the other entrance of the hotel, by the bathrooms, and they've already emptied it for the night. So I went up to the bartender, the girl. She's about 22, 23 years old. They're getting ready to close the bar down. I said, ma'am, where do they take the trash that is dumped? She said, oh, we take it out to the back of the hotel in the dumpster. I thought for a minute. I said, can I go out there? You have to understand, this is the Hilton Garden Inn. And that week in Houston, it was cold. For some reason, a cold spell came through, and it was cold. And so the bartender goes out to the back of the hotel with me. And she's very nice. She gets me plastic gloves. I'm telling you the truth. It gets worse. There's not one dumpster out there. There are two. And they're not small dumpsters. They're bigger than the dumpster we have out here. These are hotel dumpsters. You understand what I'm saying? Do you understand what kind of things get put in a dumpster in a hotel? Who knows? So yeah, I'm about ready to learn. I was brought up in a hotel, okay? And I started at the left-hand dumpster. And I'm thinking, I am never going to find this key. But you understand, when you got to find something that you're desperate for, you'll do about anything to look for it. And so I'm in the left-hand dumpster. I got this stick, and I'm pawing through things. Got my plastic gloves on. I'm still in church clothes, and it's cold. It's just cold, and I'm outside going through a dumpster behind the back of the Hilton Garden Inn Hotel with a bartender. So she says to me, I don't think it's over here. I think you should look over here. Okay. So we go to the other dumpster. And it's full of trash. And she says, well, I just dumped this from the bar. So I know it's not in there. So I got to move all that stuff off the top to get to the stuff that's underneath. And in my head, I'm thinking, God's going to help me find this key, but I'm not going to find this key. Here I am. I'm out here going through the dumpster. I should have taken a picture. I wish I would have. I'm going through the dumpster behind the Hilton Garden Inn with a bartender. And I start pawing through some more trash. And she says, I think we're getting close because you could start to see the trash from the bathroom. Now, I don't know what kind of bacteria is in bathroom trash at a hotel, but at this point, I don't care. I need to find the key, and I got plastic gloves. I'm protected. What I knew is that if I could find 2 Starbucks cups, because that's what I threw out, I'd be in the right trash bag. Have you ever done this at your house? I bet you haven't done it behind the Hilton Garden Inn with a bartender. And so I begin to paw. I'm pawing through this trash, and I find a bag, and I pull it out because I knew what color the trash bag was. It was one of those. It was one of those clear plastic, opaque kind of clear. Opaque and clear, that's an oxymoron. But I knew that if I could find that bag, and if I could find the Starbucks cups, that I was on the right track. And so now we're going through the bathroom trash. They'd already emptied the trash from the bathroom. You know what kind of things people do in bathrooms. I don't know. But I don't care at this point. I gotta find this key. This key is valuable. If I don't find this key, I don't know how I'm getting to the airport the next morning. He's not going to have a car. I'm going to have this car towed. Somebody's going to have a bill. And I pull out this bag and start moving through it, and I see 2 Starbucks cups. I said, ah. I said, God, maybe, just maybe. And I keep pawing and move those Starbucks cups. And there it is. The key fob to the Enterprise rental car. Okay. I'm like, oh, Jesus, thank you, Lord. And I said to the girl, she was so sweet. I said, thank you so much for helping me. Oh, you're awesome. You're great. And I'm thinking, now, I don't want to miss this opportunity. So we're done going through the trash. I go back inside, and I said, hey, you go to church anywhere? I mean, if someone is going to go through the trash with you, you ought to might find out what their relationship with God is, okay? She said, I used to go to church, don't go there much anymore. And I tell her what I do and that kind of thing. We go back inside. I got the key fob. I'm like so excited. I called Ashton. He was on his way back with his friend. I said, Ashton, stop right now and get a $50 gift card. Because here's a girl. She's trying to tend bar. She's at the hotel, and she's not making a lot of money. I said, I'm going to show her. I'm going to use this opportunity to show her how God does things. Get this $50. I said, how long are you working? She said, I'll be gone in a few minutes. Wait just a minute. Wait just a few minutes. Ashton grabs the gift card for me. I give it to her, and she's happy. I'm happy. And then I got to thinking, this is what Jesus does. This is what Jesus did. When he came to this earth, he was dumpster diving in a bunch of trash. Let me just help you understand how God rewrites the stories of people's lives for a minute. Okay, here's the first thing I want you to understand. God rewrites the stories of people's lives when we're willing to get in the trash of their lives and find something that is valuable. The most important thing to me in that moment is finding something valuable in the middle of a bunch of stuff that's not valuable. You see, this is what God does for you. This is what God does for me. He gets in the middle of our trash. Because the reality of it is, life is messy. And any church people that would like to suggest that it's not are just religious church people. Life is messy. The problem with us is that we want to act as though that we've never been pawing in the trash. We've all pawed through the trash, not just to look for things, but we have been that thing in the trash that nobody else saw that was valuable, and God saw something in the middle of the trash that was valuable and decided to paw through all the mess to find that one little thing that was important. You see, God rewrites the stories of people's lives when we're willing to get in the trash of their lives and find something that's valuable. Let me prophesy to you for just a moment. Next year, as we approach this year, I believe that you are going to see people come to Christ that you thought would never come to the Lord. Some of you have family members. Some of you have friends. Some of you have acquaintances. There are business people. There are other individuals that today are shaking a fist in the face of God. I'm telling you, 2020 is going to be a moment of God rewriting impossible stories. Here's the second thing I just want you to understand this morning. God rewrites the stories of people's lives when we understand most of what God does happens outside of the church walls. Well, think about it for a moment. How often are we here? The least amount of time you spend anywhere is in church. And yet, we have centered all of our focus, all of our activity around what happens in this building. There are 132 encounters in the New Testament that Jesus will have with people one-on-one. 4 of them were in the synagogue. 6 were in the temple. 122 of them were out in the mainstream of life. God is not just interested in doing something here. He's interested in doing something there. But we have concentrated so much here that we've forgotten most of the work of God is done out there. So some of you may have heard of Lance Wallnau. He's a prophetic teacher. And he talks about this. He talked about the 7 mountain mandate. And I just want to take 2 minutes and help us with something here. He talks about the areas of our culture, 7 of them: religion, education, family, government, media, art, and business. Did you know that 97% of the influencers in the world or 3% of the influencers are controlling 97% of the world? Only 3% are controlling all of the rest of the 97% of those 7 mountains. And what we do, we're really good. We've done the religion thing. We've done the church planning thing. We've done the mission thing. That's all great. The problem is that if you're going to influence culture, you can't just be at the top of the church mountain. You've got to have people at the top of every mountain that love Jesus. And the reality of it is this. As a believer, we do not have a right to speak about Christ into the organization that we're working for unless we have performed for the bottom line of that organization. What do you mean? Can I just tell you that nobody wants to hear about Jesus from a lazy worker? Nobody wants to hear about Christ if that employee is not concerned with the one thing that employer is concerned with, their bottom line. People want to go in and they want to preach Jesus, they want to talk about Jesus, which you should do. But we don't get the right to do it until we have fulfilled the bottom line of the employer. Many Christians are the most complaining and lazy people on the job, and then they don't understand why nobody wants to hear about their Jesus. Let me prove this to you biblically. Joseph sat in prison until he could solve the king's problem. When he solved the king's problem, he gets to do whatever he wants to in Egypt. He gets to disciple the Pharaoh and everybody else in Egypt when he solves the king's problem. Daniel. Nebuchadnezzar says, everybody serve the God of Daniel after Daniel solves the king's problem and interprets his dream. After the angels pull Daniel up out of the lion's den. Then the king says, hey, everybody's going to serve the God of Daniel. You see, what God is wanting us to understand is that what he wants to do is not just in here, he wants to do it out there. But I don't get the right to speak in to the 7 mountains of religion, education, family, government, media, art, and business until I understand that I have solved the problem of the people that I am working for. Once I do that, it opens up the door to talk about Jesus all day long. Here's the text, and let me help you understand this. It's in 1 Samuel chapter 10. Here's the context of it. God is calling King Saul into service. And Samuel tells Saul, after these signs come to pass, you're going to come to the hill of God where the Philistine garrison is. Watch the contrast here. It's the hill of God, but it's occupied by the enemy. Every one of these 7 mountains belong to God, but they are occupied by the enemy. What? Do you need to think about that for a minute? What is the responsibility of the church? Just take a look at where you work right now or the business that you own. And your employees, whether you're an employer or an employee. There's the hill of God, it belongs to God, but many of these places are occupied by the enemy. What is the responsibility of the church? Outside of the 4 walls of the church. It is to go where the hill of God is and remove it from the hands of the enemy back into the hands of God. You know, the church has removed itself from, don't get involved in this, don't get involved in this, don't touch politics, don't touch music, don't touch art, don't touch business. And wherever there is a vacuum, the enemy will make sure that evil people will fill it. And the responsibility outside of the church is to go to the hill of God where the enemy garrison is at and take it back for the honor and the glory of God. Does that make sense to anybody in the room? So God rewrites the stories of people's lives beyond the 4 walls. What's the program? You're the program. I'm the program. Well, we need a program. No, we don't need a program. What we need are people to understand that you have an assignment. Tomorrow morning when you get up and go to work or whatever you do, you've got an assignment to go to the hill of God and claim it back from the enemy for God. That's your assignment. Here's the third thing that I want you to see. God rewrites the stories of people's lives when we understand he can use people who don't have a relationship with him. Okay, I'm out behind the Hilton Garden Inn Hotel, and the girl says to me, I don't think we should look over there. I think we should look over there. She's the one with a word of knowledge, not me. I don't have a word from God. I'm just desperate to find a key. And she says, I think we should look over there. And I'm like, okay. Do you understand that if God can use a donkey and cause it to talk, God can use anybody? God can use anybody. See, if we're expecting a person to look a certain way and act a certain way and be a certain way before we're going to accept them into our little church clique, God will work outside of that every time. That's the story of Jesus, God working outside the religious clique that existed in the New Testament. I told you a couple of weeks ago that this morning, we're going to help rewrite some lives from girls that are caught in sex trafficking in India. Let me read you this story. This is from a book called Red that they published. It's called Red for a couple of reasons, for the blood of Christ, but you may not know this, but it's called the Red Light District because they use red lights to cover up physical malformities and disease because you can't see it when you're in a red light. This is a story. I'm going to change her name. I'm going to call her Aisha. When Aisha's mother died, her world changed very quickly. A rebellious teenager with little left to keep her grounded. She dropped out of the 9th grade, began working alongside her father at construction sites. She then flirted in and out of promiscuous relationships that culminated in a union with a man her father didn't approve. To avoid being separated, the lovers ran away and married. The marriage lasted only a few years. She looked for love in the arms of other men. Desperate for relationships, she took up company with a man who spent his days robbing people on the streets. The police apprehended her and her husband, and she was jailed for 5 days. Upon her release, she was dropped off at a railroad platform. A woman on the platform watched the abandoned girl falter around the station as a cat watches a bird with a broken wing. She made her move. Come with me. I've got a housekeeping job there for you. Aisha went, and the woman threw her into the red light district for a mere $200. She was young and beautiful. She attracted many wealthy clients as she worked the streets of the district. The weeks passed. Her belly grew. The pimps took notice of the life developing inside of her. They transferred her into the darkness of a brothel run by an abusive manager. Day in and day out, he physically abused her for her decreased activity and uncooperative behaviors. Where her body required food, he fed her mostly alcohol. Drunk, weak, and broken, she wanted out. Help came through a colleague who had a connection with a nearby drop-in center. She went over one day and met with a counselor. It was a highly emotional uphill journey. A caseworker assessed her situation over 4 sessions. The first hurdle, alcohol. She was made into an alcoholic. She would begin the sessions in a fearful, drunken stupor. She stayed drunk all the time because of the pain of what she was doing. During one session, a man burst into the meeting place shouting threats at her because she'd promised him a child. She grew quiet and less vocal in his presence. Her apparent lack of resolve concerned the caseworker. She asked her to go without alcohol for 1 day to see if her desire to escape remained as strong when she was sober. Her response would weigh heavily in the decision to admit her to the safe house. A day passed. She stayed true to her commitment and didn't touch alcohol. She arrived at the drop-in center saying, "Let's go." They took her out of the red light district. And by the way, when they do this, it's extremely dangerous because it's overseen by pimps and brothel madams, and it's run by organized crime that has connections to Al-Qaeda. They're making terrorist bombs in these places. It's very dangerous. You just can't go in and pull people out. That's what I thought. I just go in and just get them. You can't do it. It's not safe. They took her out of the red light district into the safe house. She was hungry, unkempt, and the only plastic bag she had was full of dirty clothes. They issued her a starter kit of clothing, toiletries, a blanket symbolic of her fresh start. She bathed, ate some more as if eating for the first time, and hardly spoke but a few words before dropping into a heavy sleep in her new clean bed. Her second day at the safe house came with a full medical evaluation revealing that she was 8 months pregnant, malnourished, and HIV negative. Somebody asked me about HIV in these areas, and interestingly, it's not a significant problem because Bill Gates poured millions of dollars into the country to remove the problem of HIV. The doctor prescribed medicine for her withdrawal symptoms from alcohol and vitamins for the child. She battled the residual trauma of her physical and sexual abuse. She fought memory loss, frequent disorientation, and all kinds of stuff. She had an addiction to alcohol, but never once did she ask for some. As she grew comfortable with her housemates, she expressed to them her great fear of the man who wanted her baby. On September 18th of this particular year, She delivered a healthy baby girl. Both mother and baby are in good health, and she continues to bless the Safe House as her life is totally been turned around. And the statement here in the book is God is rewriting her story.